room. Alright y'all, this officially begins week 3. For this week, my main priority is getting the subflooring in. So I finally got the metal things that were stuck in the ground out, thank God. If y'all haven't seen, I think I'll put a picture of it right here. I took it to one place for one person to look at, and they told me that it wasn't going to be easy to take out because the gas tank is right underneath them, and they screwed them from the bottom. So they told me that I wasn't going to be able to take that out and that I was going to have to get it soldered off, I guess is what you would call it. But then I took it to another place and they were able to take it out. So that was super great, and it wasn't super expensive. It cost me $20 for them to do it, so super duper cheap. And now today, I think for the most part, I'm just going to be cleaning the inside. There's still a lot of gunky stuff, a lot of insulation particles that used to be in here, the foam stuff. It's still around. My allergies are bad because of it, but I'm going to try to clean out as much as I can. Clean the floor as much as I can, all the metal. And then I'm going to start cutting out pieces to put in between the floor because the floor is like raised and then it's a little bumpy like that. You know how cars are. And I'm going to put insulation in between those so that it's all even. And then I'm going to be putting in my subfloor, which is actually just going to be plywood. Okay, so I finished cutting the insulation that's going to go on the floor, so good for me. We got that done. But I'm not going to install it until I already have the plywood, which I haven't bought yet, and until I have it cut and it's ready to be put in. It's kind of like styrofoam, so it falls apart really easily. I don't want to have it in here for a couple of days and like be stepping on it or when I go to buy the plywood, like having that be put in here and then having that mess it up. So I'm gonna hold off on that, and I'm currently trying to figure out how I'm going to cut my plywood, because all the videos that I've seen of other people doing this, there's a mat that comes under their carpet that they've been using to trace the outlines, and that mat, there's a mat that came with this van also, but let me show you what it looks like. So she's a little beat up. I mean, I could still probably get the outlines. It does have the carpet attached, so I mean, it would just be a little bit harder. Since I put in my carpet, I let the carpet be a little bit longer than that mat is. So my sizing would be off. So I'm just trying to figure out a different way that I can do this. But luckily I have some leftover carpet, and I thought I was going to use for the ceiling. But it's not quite long enough to do that, but I think it might just be long enough for me to make an outline so that I can do that for the floor. So this is what I'm working on right now. This is the carpet. I'm just gonna go in and trace where it needs to go and then cut it down to size. Well, we did it. I cut the carpet out to be the exact size. I had a couple of issues where the carpet wasn't long enough, the pieces that I had left, but we fixed that with some duct tape. So all is good. I think for today, I'm happy to where I got. Tomorrow I'll go to Lowe's and buy the plywood, and then hopefully we can start cutting. So I'll catch up with y'all then. Hello. So today is December 1st. We started this van build back in October, late October, so it's been about 2 months. But it's only been about 3 weeks of me actually working on it because I haven't had too much time, and I'm taking it kind of slow just because I'm trying to do my research and make sure I'm doing everything the best way that I can. And speaking of, so last time we left off, I cut out this carpet to use as my mat, and I'm trying to work on my subflooring. That's my next step. I was originally going to screw holes into the bottom of the van and have that come up from underneath so that it would hold the subfloor plywood in place. But I recently found people doing it a different way, and I think that might be better for me. So instead I'm gonna frame the floor and glue that down onto the metal and then screw the plywood floor on top of the framing. And I think that'll help because I think it gives me just a tad bit more, another layer that I can put insulation in, and that'll be better for me in the long run. And also apparently it helps with creaking, and it'll overall just be easier on me. So I think that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm gonna figure out a floor plan for my flooring, for my framing. I'm gonna figure out how many pieces. I think I'm gonna do 1x2s, 2x1s, to put in here, go and buy them, and tomorrow I'm gonna cut them, and hopefully by the end of this week we will have our subfloor in, which will be amazing because it's been a long time and I really want to get that done. So hopefully we're gonna do it. Let's get started. Alright, so this is what I'm thinking. I've made a rough floor plan of what this is gonna look like. One thing that I wanted to keep in mind is that I don't have a lot of overhead space. I'm trying to make the floor take up as little space as possible. So I'm gonna actually be putting the 1x2s in between the ridges. So some of these will have the 1x2s and some of them will have the insulation in them. That way everything will actually just be level to here, to the top of this, and then my plywood will go directly on that. So I think for my framing, this is what it's gonna look like. I'm going to run one strip that goes all the way up here, one strip that goes all the way up here, one straight up the middle, and then one that runs through this spot right here, and then one that I'm gonna have to cut the individual pieces to put in the middle, and one up at the top. So for right now, that's my plan. It might end up changing. This was just my first draft attempt. I'll look at it after I have the wood and after I start cutting things, just to see what it's gonna actually end up taking. I definitely do want to have a lot of connection points just so everything is pretty sturdy, but we'll see. Alright, so we have the materials for the framing. I bought 6 pieces of pine, 1x2s, 2x1s, 2 bottle things of the glue, 1 of the calc, and altogether it was $50. And I did actually go and I looked at the plywood, and it's a little bit more expensive than I thought. I figured out that it's gonna take me 2 pieces of plywood for the van, and I'm not sure which one the best one will be. I did find some specifically for subflooring, and it had Reflectix on the back of it, but it was $66 per piece, and I don't really think I'm gonna spend that much money on it, and I don't know how useful that would be anyway. I'm not gonna do that one. I'll have to see later on what ends up being the best, but for right now it's just something to keep in mind. This is getting a little pricey. Yep. Here are my 6 1x2s 2x1s that I bought. I also got this primer, and this Kills Premium 3, and it says it's moisture resistant, so that's why I got it, just to prevent warping and water getting on the bottom of it. It also prevents mildew. So I'm just trying to cover my bases, make sure nothing happens underneath that ends up being a problem for me later. Okay, so I just finished priming the 2x1s on one side, and I'm letting them dry for a little bit before I flip them and do the other side. And while I wait on those to dry, I'm gonna go ahead and start filling in the holes that are in the bottom of the van all the way through to the bottom, and it's where the seats were attached to, and I'm not really gonna use it for anything, so I'm just gonna go ahead and cover them just so no cold or hot air comes in. I bought my caulk caulk thing. And I went ahead and I cleaned around the holes. I sanded them down because some of them did have some rust on them. And I'm gonna spray some WD-40 to keep them from getting any rust on them. And then I have this little Rust-Oleum thing. I'm gonna paint over them. And then, since they're complete holes, if I just put the caulk on it, it's just gonna fall right out the bottom. So I'm gonna use quarters and nickels, put the caulk on here, put these on top of the holes, and that way it'll stay. And then I'll just let those dry overnight because I'm not gonna be doing anything in here anytime soon. So hopefully that'll work. I'll check back in with y'all in a little bit. Okay, so here's what we're doing to cover up these holes. So first I take my caulk and I put it all around. Harder with one hand. And then we'll just take that bit, flip it right over, and push it right in. Just like that. And we're gonna do that for all of these holes. And there we go. We've got them all in there, all of these, and I'm just gonna let them dry for a little bit. Well, that is all that I'm gonna do for today. I got everything that I had planned done. So I'm pretty excited about it. I'm just letting things dry right now. Tomorrow I'm gonna come back and I'm going to cut my pieces to make the frames to size and possibly glue them down. I'm not entirely sure yet. It depends on how much time we have, but I'm excited. Yeah, it's looking like I might get my subfloor done by the end of this week, which is really exciting. I think overall the biggest thing that I've learned, well, two big things that I've learned right now are that things take a lot longer than you expect them to, and you just can't rush it. There's not really anything that you can do about it. You just have to stick with it. And two is that there is definitely more than one way to do things and it'll work out. There is definitely some way that you can get it done. So I'm just gonna start taking things one day at a time and stop stressing myself out about deadlines or trying to get things done by a certain date. And I mean, I'm doing it, I'm here. I don't wanna lose momentum, but at the same time, I don't wanna put too much pressure on myself. So we're just gonna take it as it comes and just go from there. All right, I'll see y'all tomorrow. Bye. Hello. So today is day 2 of trying to do the subfloor and the framing. Yesterday I primed all of my pieces for the framing and I caulked inside the van. Today it was pretty rainy all day. I came out here to check and the caulk's still not dry, and I'm gonna be gluing some of the frame pieces over that. So I'm gonna give it another day to dry. So I will not be gluing today. Instead, I came and I measured, and I'm gonna go ahead and cut my pieces for the framing and just glue either tomorrow if everything is dry or glue the next day. So it's gonna be a little bit slower, taking a little bit more time, but I mean, can't do anything about the weather. So slow day today, but that's okay. This is day 3 of working on the framing. It's a lot more complicated than I originally thought. I'm kind of at a loss for where I should go from here. Here, I'll show you all what I've done so far. So today I started working on cutting my framing. And so I went ahead and I cut these middle ones to size. There's one more up there underneath the carpet. The problem that I'm having is with this thing that it makes it to where these don't lay flat. And I'm having that same issue right over here on this side. And so when you see, everything is at a slightly different height. Like this, well actually this is just not laying flat, period. This one's a little bit taller, this one's a little bit less tall, and then this one's just like even shorter than that. I was originally gonna cut these to fit in between these pieces, but then that ended up feeling ridiculous because that would mean so many cuts, and I was worried about the integrity of it if there were so many little pieces. So I decided that instead I would just do a long one running across the top and I'd put insulation underneath those bits, which I thought would work except for on the sides because there's no raised ribs over there. Right over here, so there's about a 1¼ inch height difference between these ones and these ones. And the same thing happens over here in this little weird space and over here in this top corner. And then I realized that I was cutting these vertical ones to be, well, I didn't even cut these. I bought these at a 6-foot length. I realized that I'd left space on the carpet at the top just in case I needed to cut more for afterwards when I actually had the subfloor in and when I was doing the flooring, just to make it look nice. And I'd been measuring to the long cut, not the shortcut. So now I'm frustrated, and it's been raining here, so it's kind of dirty in here and it's bothering me because there's mud and dirt everywhere, and the stuff still hasn't dried in the van because it's so humid outside and it's cold and my hands are cold. And I don't know, this is just overall more frustrating than I thought it was gonna be. But I guess I'm gonna take a little break and just troubleshoot some things, see what I think I can do, and we'll go from there, I guess. This is hard. Yeesh.